click record. And then I'm going to share my screen. All right, so for today, let's see, we've got outstanding language family RFCs. Starting from the bottom, we've got this proposal to create a Paketo project programming style guide. I want to say Frankie said this was ready to go, and it looks like both Emily and myself have approved this, so I think it probably could get merged at this point. I don't think Frankie's here to say anything about it. We'll go ahead and merge this after this meeting. There's this function Buildpack RFC. I don't see Matt on the call, so I think we'll skip over it for this week. There's this dependency library RFC. I don't see Marty on the call, but I do see Mark. I think the question I ended up asking on this one was whether or not this actually needs to be a separate repo. I think I agreed with what Emily was asking here, that maybe this client code, even though the server doesn't use it, could probably still live in the server code base.
So the client code isn't a client for the server. It's a client for something else. And then it creates stuff that the server reads later. I think that's our hesitation for putting it in the server.
Oh, I guess I'm maybe confused about what the purpose of exposing this is then. I guess I had thought that the expectation was, say, like a Buildpack author could then use this client library to fetch dependency information. But if it's not interfacing with the server, then I'm kind of confused as to like what it is interfacing with.
It's interfacing with the actual sources of the dependencies. So like if you ask it for Go versions, it actually reaches out to the Go like download page and gets the versions from there. So it's for fetching source code and versions of available dependencies, but not the ones that we built. We don't have a client for that. We just put them in, or we have the just the dev servers API is that client, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you use this client and ultimately you produce what using it?
So we use this. This is kind of what backs our concourse resource and eventually our whatever future pipeline will be. That will just let us know when there's new dependencies available, and then we use it to fetch the source code and compile it, and then we make it available via the dev server.
Okay.
So this is used to populate the dev server?
Yeah, exactly. Or the same source that the dev server looks at, which is S3.
I think I'd love in this RFC just to have like a little bit more information about this workflow, just because I found it confusing to understand what exactly is going on. Because I think last time we talked about the RFC, I got the impression that the dep server was just serving metadata rather than serving like the actual dependencies themselves. Did I understand that correctly or incorrectly?
It serves metadata, which includes a link to where you can download the compiled dependency.
And this is about putting dependencies somewhere that the dep server would link to, or this is about populating the metadata in the dep server?
This is basically just letting us know what versions of Go and Ruby and whatever are available, and where can we download the source code so we can compile it. Basically, every struct in this library just has a method to get all the versions and the method to get metadata for a single version.
Cool. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, I agree. Having more clarification about who the end user of this is and like what the use case for those particular things would be helpful.
Yeah, that's fair. We can come back next week with more of that.
Cool.
Is the underlying intent of is the underlying intent of this to allow for users to not be reliant on artifacts that are built for Paketo, but to have their own, like to be able to determine what artifacts exist without having to use ones that we built?
It's, I think mostly our motivation is transparency. Like this is source code that we wrote in private that we use to, you know, put together the pipelines that build these things. So end users wouldn't necessarily use this, but if someone wanted to say create a build pack for like R or some dependency we don't compile, they could add R to this library, and it would make it very simple for us to be able to build our feature.
Okay. Cool. So it sounds like the action there is to provide some more detail around how it's used, and we can go from there. Cool. Oops. I think there was one more. This one is a draft. Frankie, this is not ready?
Not at all, yeah.
Okay, cool. I will skip over it then. Moving on to language-specific RFCs. There still is just this PHP one. I think we talked about it last week, and I don't believe anything has changed in the week since we did, so I'll just skip over that one unless someone objects. Not hearing any objections. The next item on the agenda is this roadmap discussion reminder. There is already an ongoing discussion in the feedback repository about the 2021 Paketo roadmap. What's being outlined here is basically the hopes and dreams, wishes for anything that could possibly be worked on in the Paketo org in the next year. And so what we're looking for is really, nothing too big or too small. Anything you can possibly think of to have Paketo work on. And we're going to take from that list of things and kind of organize a set of themes for stuff that we're going to be focused on in 2021. So if you haven't yet taken a look, please do. Feel free to add comments, including ideas for what you think would be interesting for the Paketo org to take a look at in this year. Okay. If there's nothing left on the agenda, does anyone have anything that wasn't on the agenda that they want to speak of now and discuss? No? All right, then I'll let everyone go back to their workday, and I'll see you here next week.